Hello, and welcome back to It's Tech Time. So here we are in video 4 of my Ansible Crash Course series. And in this video, we're going to finally be installing Ansible and using it to run some commands against our servers. This is it. This is where we're actually going to get some hands-on with Ansible. So let's go ahead and get started with installing Ansible and running commands. Here we are back on my laptop. Now there are many different ways you can install Ansible, but for now what we're going to do is use the version that comes by default with Ubuntu. First I'm going to run which Ansible to see if it's installed or not. And on this machine it's already installed. On yours you can simply run sudo apt install Ansible. And it's a pretty small package, so that installer should run pretty quickly. But like I said, on my workstation it's already installed, so we're not going to do that. Now that you have Ansible installed, to use it efficiently, you need to have an inventory file. We're already inside of our Git repository, Ansible-YouTube, that we created in the last video. So this time we're simply going to run nano and then inventory. And it should create a new file for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the IP addresses of our servers in here. Now these are my IP addresses for my servers. Yours are probably going to be different, but we now have an inventory file. Now you can also type in the fully qualified domain name for your server if you have one. So for example, if we had test.itstechtime.com, we could type that in instead of the IP address, because that is more likely to stay static than the IP addresses. For the examples we're going to be walking through, the IP addresses are going to be fine. That's just something you need to be aware of. So now I'll hit Control O to save the file, and then Control X to exit. So now we have two files in our Git repository. But if we run git status, it's going to show the inventory file that we just created as being untracked. And so how we can add it to our tracked files is we can simply run git add and then inventory. So now if we do git status, it shows that it's waiting to be committed. So we can do git commit -m and then add a message to tell what we did. So we added inventory, or whatever you want to call it. So we do git status now. It says that this branch that we're currently in is ahead of main by one commit. So that means we need to push it now. So we'll do git push. It's going to ask for my passphrase because I don't have the SSH agent active yet. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit Control C to cancel it. I'm going to clear my screen. And then I'm going to run my alias that we created on the last video, SSHB, to cache my SSH key for me. So now that that is cached, I'm going to run git push. And this time it's going to run without asking for the passphrase. And now I'll run git status just to confirm that we're up to date with the branch. And so if we go back to our web browser and look at our repository, we now see our inventory file has been added to our repository in the cloud. And so if I click on it to show what's in there, you see the 3 IP addresses we just added. Now your IP addresses are probably going to be different, but you should get the idea by now. We have an inventory file, and inside that inventory file we add our host. So now we're going to actually run an Ansible command, and this command will help us test that we can actually connect to our other servers. So we're going to type in Ansible all -i, and we're going to steer it toward the key file we made for Ansible. So we'll do / for home directory .ssh / and then Ansible, and then we're going to do a -i for inventory, and we're going to tell it to use the inventory file, and then we're going to do /m for modules. So what command are we going to give Ansible? And we're simply going to pass the ping command. And now this Ansible module ping works a little differently than Windows ping. It's not going to just simply reach out and touch the server. It's going to gather some information from the server as well. And you'll see in a minute what I mean. This basically just lets us know that everything is working. So I'll press enter. I had my command wrong. This is supposed to be --key file, key-file. Now if I hit enter, we had 3 successes. And what that means is that Ansible was able to connect to all 3 of our servers. So to explain this command a little bit more, we ran Ansible against all, and we needed to give it a key file, and we pointed it toward the Ansible key file that we generated earlier, and then we told it to use our inventory list that we just created, which is nothing more than the IP addresses of our 3 servers right now. And then we told it to run a module, and the module we told it to run was ping. And unlike the Windows ping, what Ansible's ping does is it connects via SSH to the server and then verifies the connection. And so we were able to connect to those 3 servers successfully with Ansible. And what we can do is we can make this command even simpler by creating an Ansible config file. And to do that, we're simply going to run nano ansible.cfg for config. For most of y'all watching this video, this should create a new text file for you. And this config file will be ran by Ansible every time you run it. So what we're going to do is we're going to set some defaults. And the first default we're going to set is inventory. So we'll do inventory equals, and then the name of the inventory file we're using, which we simply named ours inventory. Then on the next line, I'm going to do private _key_file base equal, and then I'm going to point it to the Ansible key we created. Now we're going to save the file by hitting Control O, and we'll hit Enter to accept the file name, and then we'll hit Control X to exit. If we go back up to our ping command, so in the config file we already told it which inventory file to use, so we can take that out. And we also already told it in the config file which key file to use, so we can take the key file part out. So that leaves us with Ansible all, and that means all servers in our inventory-m for module, and we're going to run the ping module again. Having that config file allows us to save some time in how much we have to type out. And as you can see, again, we had 3 successful pings to our servers. See, isn't that a little bit easier when running Ansible ad hoc commands? And the reason why shortening that worked is because in the Ansible config file, we already declared which inventory to use, and we already declared which private key to use. And another useful command to know is Ansible all --list -host, and that basically cats out the host that we have in the inventory file. That's really just a neat little tip to keep on mind while you're dealing with Ansible, that you can run this command and see all the hosts you have in your inventory files. And another one that may be a little more useful than that is Ansible all, and we're going to pass it a module again. And the module we're going to pass this time is gather_facts. And that was a lot of information, wasn't it? When Ansible connects to a server, it's basically pulling information about that server. And so it pulls everything from how much free memory is on it, to Ansible host directories. Pretty much anything you can think is being pulled by Ansible off the server as part of its gathering facts step. And that was a whole lot of information, but one thing you can do is do --limit, and then limit it to an IP address for just one of your hosts. And so I'm going to pass it the IP address for server 2. So now all it did was gather facts from server number 2, which is still a whole lot of information. And one way this is going to be really useful is if you're trying to troubleshoot Ansible. You can run gather facts against your server, and let's say you have a step that keeps failing. You can compare the variable you have in your playbook to what gather facts pulls off the server itself, and make sure you have it named the right thing. Which right now is way ahead of where we're at, but we'll go over more details what I mean about that in a future video. So now you know how to successfully run ad hoc Ansible commands against your servers. Before we end here, we want to make sure we have everything synced up with Git, so we'll run git status, and we'll see this new Ansible config file that's not currently being tracked by version control. So I got 2 ways I can add it. I can do git add and then the name of the Ansible file to add it individually, or I can simply do git add dot, and that will add everything to version control. So now if I run git status, it's showing the Ansible config file has been added. And so I'll do git commit -m, and I'll add a message saying that we created the Ansible config file. Now you can add whatever you want to. So now if we do git status, everything's been checked into version control, but we haven't pushed anything up to Git yet. Now, some people wait until they get done with everything before doing a git push. Some people will git push each individual thing they do. You do whatever works best for you and your environment. Unless you work somewhere where it's standard operating procedure to do it a certain way, then you'll do it that way. But I'm going to go ahead and do a git push. And it's going to ask for my passphrase because I don't have SSH agent running in the background. Help if I type in the right passphrase. And then everything has been pushed up to Git. So now if I do git status, it shows everything is synced up. And here we are at the end of video 4 already. Now we are able to run Ansible ad hoc commands against our servers. We are able to run one command and have it execute on each server at the same time, which I think is really cool. But to be fair, we have not automated anything yet, and we haven't made any changes to our servers using Ansible. But in video 5, we will start taking a look at how to do that. Then in video 6, we will start looking at how to create our own playbooks, which will be our first steps into the world of automation using Ansible, which is going to be very cool. I thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.